It's like 4 years since COVID, and I still get everything messed up all the time.
I know it's those technical things. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so I get my thing set. Great. Okay, so we'll just go for it.
Yeah.
All right, so welcome so much, Magnus, to a Curious Yogi podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's such a privilege, like I just said. And, we met you this summer at Newson, and I know the same goes for Simon, that you made such an impact on us. Not only your classes, we loved your breathwork class, your Ashtanga class, your soft Ashtanga class, but mostly you, just the way that you carry yourself, the way you teach, your graciousness, your kindness, your warmness. It was so moving. You really left an impact on us this summer. So grateful to just get to spend some time with you.
Thank you very much for your kind words.
Yeah, so I mean, it's always great, at spaces like Newson when we come together for yoga festivals. Such a great place to connect with other like-minded, open-hearted beings. So it's amazing to always see what comes out of those kind of events.
Mm. Mm.
Hmm.
Beautiful days. Really so nice to be together with people who loves what you love. So it's very special atmosphere up there, I think.
Definitely. And I
Mm.
feel like I have so many things I could launch off onto to start our conversation, like your teachings of yoga and meditation, your background in Tibetan Buddhism,
Mm.
your work with the Mindfulness App, having ADHD. I also have ADHD, so
You
yes,
have?
for the neurodivergent yogis, I love that. Also, like the inspiration from in your book with your like cat that's on Instagram, who I love your cat on Instagram. There's so many where places we could go.
Mm. That's
But
nice.
yes, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that adores your cat, honestly.
It's a bit of a, the cat in the book. Actually, she passed away. She was 20
Okay.
years old, and she was a street cat, and she'd been treated quite badly. But we made her feel confident again with human beings, and I loved her so much. She was so nice and soft. And then after she passed away, of course, we waited for some time, and then we bought this new cat, a Persian cat, which is a very grumpy looking style of a cat. It's an indoor cat. And I love her and I think she's beautiful. But actually, some people, they don't like her appearance at all. And
Uh,
they tell me up in the face that no, I don't like that cat. Which makes me feel a little bad actually, because I think she's so nice.
yeah, I think she's gorgeous. Nice. She
Yeah,
looks
me
like she
too.
has quite a personality.
Yeah, she has. Yes, she has. She lived
Amazing.
together with 10 Persian cats in a small apartment here in Stockholm with a woman who loves cats, obviously. So,
Wow.
but she did, we don't know the whole history, but she kind of messed up. She couldn't behave with the other cats, so she had to go. So we got her.
Well, it's your lucky blessing then that you got that sweet cat.
Yes.
So, yeah, I love that you addressed your observation of the cat in your book, and I'm definitely like off the get-go going to plug the book. I've read the intro of the book, The
Mm.
Art of Stillness in a Noisy World. And you have such an interesting background and such an interesting story, which we hopefully have time to get into. But just to start, like for the listeners, also for me as someone that's in the noisy world, as the mo world is moving faster and faster, becoming more and more polarized, our attention and our focus, never mind like the inner peace and quiet, we don't really have a fighting chance. Like how can we, obviously people can get the book to understand, but in your words, how can we begin to cultivate that art of stillness in a noisy world?
Mhm. That's when I started to write the book, I had some obvious ideas, but also what I learned was that the way into stillness, um, it looks like there are many doors into stillness. And that's what I kind of explored in my writing. And I found that very interesting because for one person, maybe meditation is really, it happens very quickly or rapid process like for me. But for other people, it might not work. Maybe you have to start with the physical body more, with yoga asanas. Or some people can connect very closely to nature, find like more informal meditation or mindfulness by walking, mindfulness, walking meditation. But also I learned that, which was a little bit new for me, that some people that come from the countryside, they have a more complex relationship with the nature, and maybe it's close to the, how to say, a very conventional attitude that might be in those environments. So they have like a feeling that of feeling odd or feeling like an outcast in that environment. So in research you can see people that moved from those calm places, that move to the cities, they explain that they feel stillness in the middle of the city actually, because they feel like free inside from all those conventions and from all those, how to say, silent rules, how to be and how to behave and how to live a life according to be normal. So my conclusion was from writing the book that there are many ways into stillness, and for me meditation worked so good, and but I can't take for granted that that works for each and every one. And so you have to find your way to stillness, because what I write is that if you never get a relationship with that deeper stillness from within yourself, you kind of miss out of a perspective into life that I think is the place where you feel meaning, and you how to say, appreciate small things in life, and you see life more as a friend than how to say, pilgrim travel from one point to another, more
Mm-hmm.
like a moment to moment experience.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like, would you say, when we're visiting or exploring meditation in our lives, it is a kind of like the name of this podcast, about like using our curiosity to explore and observe, like, where do I actually feel still? What environments can I create around my life that support the inward stillness?
Yeah, I think so. And that can be in many different layers, also many situations. I talk about the importance of fasting from media, for example, as one, like securing, make your home proof from stress, because now, because of the telephones, of course, the cell phones, we all know that, because of TikTok reels and stuff like that, we might be at so many places when being at home, we are everywhere but not home. So I talk about like, how can you find peace even at your home when leaving your work, and not bringing all those stuff into your home. That should be a calm place. And I think I wrote an article one time for a furniture company here in Stockholm, and I talked about how you can dedicate furniture to peace, for example, for stillness. I think that's a very tempting thing. Maybe you buy a new chair or sofa and you like name it like this is a stillness furniture. And then you take like a vow that my cell phone is not welcome here. So I think that's really good. I explored a couple of those techniques and I think it was very powerful. It's almost like naive when you come up with those ideas. It's so simple, but just to leave the phone out of your bedroom for 1 week, it will change so much for you. Start doing things that you haven't done for a very long time. And I talk about creativity and fantasies, and you feel longing for new things. And of course, if you live with a partner, it's very good for the relationship as well. And you will also feel that the amount of time is vast. Just lying in bed for 15 minutes before going to sleep, doing nothing, is very nice, really nice. You feel totally free from stress, and stillness will come naturally.
Mm-hmm. What, like, either in your practice personally or in what you've observed of your many students that you've taught over the years, what would you say are the barriers to just that individual that's earnest and seeking that inner stillness and silence? Like, what are the barriers that we have to be aware of to sort of get to the other side of really cultivating those simple moments daily? Because it is about the daily practice, you
Yes.
know? So what are the barriers that we have to be aware of to
Mm.
get to those habitual ways, like you said, when you're able to kind of just drop in to cultivate that capacity, because it is about building the habit and the cultivating it to be able to just drop in kind of at any moment. But there's kind of many feels like steps ahead or in
Yeah.
front of us.
One barrier I think is that you have ideas that you have to do much. So maybe you are like a prisoner in this thought that one day I will start to do those things that I know is good, so I can feel more peace from within. But that takes so much effort from me. So I have to wait until there is time. That is one barrier, I think. But from my point of view, and I talk to many very skilled meditation teachers, and most teachers say that you should meditate like 10 minutes, something like that in the beginning, not more than that. And one other barrier, I think, is that you make like a miscalculation based on some kind of fear, I think, because in the situation when you feel a lot of stress, maybe anxiety, worries, you know that you have to stay with that to reach the stillness, but it feels easier to distract yourself. And there is a point in that because, of course, the brain works like that. You can cut off a state of mind doing something else. It works sometimes, but it will never solve the root problem, so to speak. And I think the fear comes out of that many people think that if they stay in stillness, all those hard emotions will almost come up and eat them up. It will be so scary to face those things. But when you use right techniques and you know how to handle those fluctuations of the mind, it isn't scary at all, because you will trust impermanence. And of course, I'm talking about not about people that maybe eat very strong medicine for schizophrenia or something like that. There's another question. But if we talk about normal everyday stress and distraction, worries, anxiety, stuff like that, I think we escape from the raw feelings, since we think it will be too much for us. But
Mm-hmm.
behind that that wall of fluctuations, because it feels like a wall, behind that, if you are more like water and come behind that wall, you will feel like a vast stream of stillness will be in reach for you. And when you touch that, there is no turning back, I would say.
Mm.
So
Beautiful.
to make a picture of it is like you choose to live on the front side of your house. You don't dare to go on the back side because it might be something scary, but on the back side there is a treasure. So if you just dare and find the courage to look around the corner, you will get the glimpse, and then you won't live your life only on the front side any longer.
Beautiful. So like the type of, I don't know if it's, we can say the type or the style of meditation that you practice, that you teach, it does have its roots in Tibetan Buddhism, correct?
Yes. Mm.
Yes. And um, I'm curious actually, like about, so we have, we see now mindfulness is so kind of mainstream, which is so amazing because it benefits so many people. Like it's non-secular, it's all inclusive. But I'm wondering what your experience has been like. Is there a place in modern mindfulness for the kind of devotion? And like you even said before about the chair, like you're offering your chair to your practice, like because, or like what your observation has been, because if mindfulness can almost close us more into the individual sense of like me as an individual, or how do we use mindfulness to still keep an expansive sense of interconnectedness? Like
Mm.
that's kind of where I'm at in my contemplation of using mindfulness, teaching meditation as it's mainstream because it helps so many people. And yet, what about the devotional or the bhakti or that kind of side of it?
Mm.
Shed some light on that for us.
Yes, I think what has been happening is all good, so to speak, for decades now. And I think John Kabat-Zinn, the evangelist of mindfulness in our modern time, he did absolutely right, I think, to how to say, try to cut out one piece of a bigger cake to make it come into the research field, and the rest is, so to speak, history. And I think he knew that what I'm doing now is to, how to say, deculturalize this practice. And then later on, compassion being like a trend, but already there we can get a feel that actually this comes from the same cake. So just added one more piece because now they have done research on compassion, so they can add that. So hopefully over time, I think even the secular movement of mindfulness can be practiced a little bit closer to the devotional practice. But from a Buddhist perspective, we should remember that first it comes the Four Noble Truths of the Buddha, where he like telling the state of the world that is in dukkha, in some kind of friction. And at the fourth noble truth, he says, as I've got the recipe here, and it's the eightfold path. So don't take it for the Patanjali's eight limbs of yoga. So this is a different eightfold path of how to live your life to reach nirvana, so to speak, to get rid of, to totally cut off the roots of suffering. And we should remember there that it's only the three last that is close to focus practice, and the seventh is mindfulness. So that is only one out of eight. And John Kabat-Zinn kind of cut that out, but of course he knew the rest of it. And many Buddhists would say that is a lack of ethical rules here to get the full picture. Because as you say, in worst kind of mindfulness would be like you just use mindfulness for your own benefits and to strengthen that ego. And you mistake it to be a solid entity, so to speak. And that is the flip side of Buddhist mindfulness. Because if we what Buddha said, he said that everything is impermanent. Even the I is impermanent. It's built up of many fragmented entities. And things doesn't exist as a solid entity, he said. So those things are very important Buddhist beliefs. And I think so if you want to dig deeper into the devotion in a philosophical way, you will be quite surprised that this stress reduction practice is actually, it includes so much more than that. And maybe now it's time for the world is quite a dark place at the moment, and maybe now it's time to all those rests of the ethical qualities, maybe we come into the practice. But so far so good. Mindfulness is now like everyone knows it, and almost is tired about it. Today I met an old friend of mine, and I said what I was working with, and he said, oh, mindfulness is I'm kind of fed up with mindfulness, it's everywhere. And actually that's why I didn't use the word in my book. Actually I wanted to talk about it from another angle, so I use stillness in many different nuances.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Wow. And like when you were talking about like mindfulness being one piece of the pie, it kind of made me also think how like in yoga, like the asana is one piece of the pie that's now mainstream, and rather than making it as if something wrong or a problem, it is a doorway kind of for many people. And I'm sure similarly mindfulness, that the more we sit in stillness and silence with oneself, at least within my own self, the more that kind of spark or that expansion starts to kind of unfold or envelop, like that beautiful word you used in your book, to kind of come out of itself. And then the spark to go deeper, to say like, what else is here now that I've gone to the backyard? I've started digging out the treasure, and then it's like the opening of the treasure is like the kind of benefit of the meditation practice, where it starts to kind of glow and illuminate the life. So I think it's so beautiful what you're saying, that we don't make it wrong. There's nothing wrong. It's benefited so many people, but now to bring lightness into the darkness that is everywhere. It's so disturbing out there in the world. I get so affected. I'm so
With
sensitive,
me. Same with me. Yeah.
and it's like we need to keep that treasure
Mm.
trough opening and that light coming out. And the way that I see again and again is to get it within ourselves. And then we go deeper. Then we go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think that's, at least in my experience, the only thing that brings me solace.
Yeah, that's beautifully put, I think. And I also think, as you say, like asana, it changed the life of many people. Also, very simple mindfulness techniques will also take the people who meditate into a new perspective, because maybe you have done mindfulness focusing on an object for a long time. Then maybe one day you will start thinking, who is this who's watching the point of focus? Who is this person? you feel very strong. There is a subject, there is an object. And then you come into the vipassana, you try to analyze and see clearly, what is this person, the watcher, the inner seer, that like Patanjali is saying. And then maybe you start to think and you want to explore what does that consists of. And I think that is a very interesting point when you come to that place. It will change you in the ground, so to speak. And it will how to say, you will understand that you can climb up on a watchtower and watch your thoughts and emotions and understand that I am not that. They are part of me, but I am not that. So who am I then? And then you start, how to say, peel off layer of the layer until you come to the ananda maya kosha, the blissful feeling from within.
Yeah, anandamaya kosha, the
Yeah,
blissful feeling within. That's beautiful.
that's the
So
place to be.
definitely, definitely. When you were speaking just now, I was kind of thinking like, or observing you like, okay, Magnus, you are, I know this sadhana isn't linear,
Yeah.
and yet, and it's like there are, me as a younger person, looking towards teachers, friends on the path like yourself. Obviously you're in a different phase of life than me, but you've been meditating, you've been immersed in Tibetan Buddhism since you were a teenager, and then you picked up yoga along the way. And I'm just wondering if you can express a little bit or speak a little bit about how this practice has expanded your worldview, how it's helped you through these different phases of life, to where you are today. And especially if you can touch a little bit on how it's brought any space into having ADHD. And because that I'm really curious about, just because I know how it's affected me, but just a little bit about that path, that transition, how your practice, your daily practice, that stillness you've cultivated year after year, how has it gone from point A to B, C, D, all the way?
I can do that if you promise me to cut me off if I get too long.
Okay.
Sometimes I need someone who cuts me off. So if we have a deal there, I can talk you through. I started when I was very young, since my parents got a sponsor child that happened to be Tibetan, if you believe in if things just happen or there is a reason. But his name is Karma. He's a bit older than me, and we were like pen pals throughout my childhood. I was so young, unaware, when my parents started to sponsor Karma. He was an orphan child, Tibetan child living in exile in India. And when I was 16 something, 16, 17, I was quite, actually, if I look back, I think I was quite bad state, actually. I always felt a bit stressed and I felt very disconnected from my body. I had a lot of worries and didn't feel that I liked myself very much. It's hard to say, but I had those feelings actually. I felt everyone else seemed to got it, but I feel disconnected somehow. And then Karma visited our family for a couple of months, and we became very close, like brothers. And it was a very moving months because my mother had been sponsoring Karma at that time for 20 years, something like that. And they met for the first time. And somehow there was like a mother-child relation. It still is. And I was very clear about that I didn't have a belief in the ethic monotheistic religions. And but we started to discuss the logic of Buddhism, and of course many of his views came from Dalai Lama's teachings. And at that point, Karma, he had been to university and he was very good in English, much better than me. So it was like having like a big brother telling you about something really important. So I became so interested, almost a little bit in how to say, I don't know if you can relate, but we ADHD people, sometimes we're very out of focus. But then there is this hyper focus. When we find something that kind of touch you at a specific point in your mind, you get so hyper focused on this thing. So we made up a plan that I should, when I left school, I should immediately come to India and visited Karma. So I was 19, something like that. And I visited him in Uttar Pradesh and Himachal Pradesh. We went to Dharamsala, to Dalai Lama's place, and then we went to Nepal for another month. And that was it. I was totally soaked into Buddhism, and I just loved it. And I meditated, and one of those occasions when I meditated, I had this very strong experience that I think I really got a glimpse of this Ananda Maya kosha. I felt like I am not the thoughts, I'm not emotions. I might have said to myself that I don't like myself and things like that. But I could feel that, well, that's one layer, but that's not the completely me. So I got this really strong experience. And later on, when I learned more about neuroscience, I felt like maybe this was just that I moved out of what you call the default mode network in the brain. That's a network of the brain that is self-referential. It's also called the daydreaming network. But what they have shown in research is that the daydreaming network is very often about negative tasks. Once upon a time in history, it was really useful because we had to think over and over again our place in the hierarchy, and do we have something to bring to the group, or maybe they will take you out if you not have something to bring. So this was really important. Still is very important for creativity and such. But we know that it goes to the negative. And I think a friend of mine who is doing a lot of research on the brain, she told me that you might have been like in a ditch in default mode network where you're looping, ruminating thoughts all the time. Very common for ADHD people. And meditation helped me to switch this network off, because when you focus very strongly on one thing, like I did in the meditation, you move over to other networks in the brain, like a salient network and other executive networks. And they are anti-correlating. They can't be on at the same time. So I think when that was switching off, I felt this, wow, I'm free from this rumination. So it's like two explanations. One is that I got the glimpse of Ananda Maya kosha, and the other one is just very neuroscientifically that I came out of this daydreaming state, ruminative state. But it doesn't matter. It catalyzed my interest for Tibetan Buddhism, and I wrote my thesis on university about Milarepa, Tibetan Yogi. At that time I studied history of literature, and then quickly I moved over to Indology. So I studied Tibetan language, Sanskrit language, and Hindi for 3 years. So that's like that. How to say, that meeting with my sponsor brother, my god brother Karma, that totally changed my life. And I went back and forth to Nepal. He moved there later on, so I went back and forth to Nepal in between 20 and 30. And I became a member of a Tibetan Buddhist society, and I studied Tibetan Buddhism on a daily basis. And we are still like brothers. I visited him a half year ago, and I will go now in March as well. He lives in a big house in Kathmandu. He's done very well. He doesn't need our help any longer. photo of my mother and father from the 80s is on the wall in the living room. Looks very strange for me. And we are very close, very, very close. And my kids met his kids and stuff like that. So it's a good story about life, or it's how to say, things happens in a good way for you.
Mm.
And then when I became 30, we got our second child, and she's born with a very rare condition. So she's partly deaf, partly blind. She had a lot of misfits on her joints in her spine. So that threw me into a totally new life. So she had to undergo 25 surgeries within 10 years. So we were hospitalized, and I had to leave my work. I had to leave almost everything, actually. And I'm proud. I took my responsibility, stayed and supported her in the way I could. And at that time, meditation came into a new light. So from just being an interest, just being something I was doing to keep stable in my life, it was about surviving, actually. So I'm very happy that I had those techniques that could help me to stay sane, actually, because when you never sleep, when you always are in a state of worries that something really serious can happen to her. She had really hard problems breathing, especially nighttime, and she needed help with that. Something new happens, but when I think about that time, my memories are few because it was so much happening. But I feel like that was the moment. We all have those moments when I became a mature, like I'm a really responsible person in life.
Mm.
So I grew a lot, and but I kept on practicing, even if it was harder. So after those years, to wrap up, you promise you cut me off if I'm
No,
too.
I will, but I'm on the edge of my seat still, so carry on.
Yeah. So after those years, when my daughter was 9, when it was becoming a little bit more stable, my body was so weak because I had done so much seated meditation throughout my life, and it was such hard time with my daughter, and I slept so little those years. So my body was very weak and not in good condition at all. Then I started asana practice, and that totally changed everything again. So that was like the second turn of the Magnus wheel. Yes. So that's really from a very weak and quite sad person, actually, because I had so much sadness within me after all those years with my daughter. Not because of me, because of my daughter. That's important to say. It took me 1 year of asana practice, 6 days a week. I was again hyper focused, and I did the Ashtanga series 6 days a week. I never missed out a day. And after 1 year, I got a new body, and my mind felt again like it was flourishing.
Hmm. Wow. It's like the thread, or the thread of the Magnus wheel going round and round. I'm sure it's gone around one or two more times since then, since your
Absolutely.
Ashtanga days. But it is so beautiful to see the kind of thread of life, that pulls one's story
Mm.
from Sweden to Nepal to Buddhism to yoga, through your illness, through hard times, through
Yes.
happy times. Like, what is that thread that, is there underlying, whether we recognize it or not? And I think, when you were asking if I could relate to the hyper focus, definitely when the spark is lit, and then the more, and this is why I do think, having ADHD can be a kind of superpower, because it cultivates for me anyways, the real strength in the practice, which then is the kind of lifeline. And hearing you speak about, especially, it's one thing to have a strong practice when life is hunky-dory and everything's going along fine, but to keep the resilience of the practice when, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, you said for 9 years, like that speaks, I think, to the potential of meditation practice, really.
Was that hyperfocus way into yoga for you as well?
Yes, definitely. Like for me, I was suffering from a lot of addiction issues and dependency on, like many ADHD people, self-medicate, looking
Mm,
for those dopamine hits. And so for me, shifting my dopamine hit from drugs, alcohol, sex, food into, okay, let me get my dopamine hit here from asana and from meditation and from hearing my teacher. That to me started to, it's not as intense at first, but it did start to spark up so much that then it was Zoom,
mm,
and for better or worse, the lowest hanging fruit, the scattered mind will always grab, but I feel eternally grateful. And like you said, whether why did it happen the way it happened? Like it's God's grace that I got placed in front of my guru and got to change the view to this way. And then that hyper focus, I would definitely say, has
mm.
catapulted me, changed my life, like unbelievable. Like I look back and I say, who was that person? There is that thread of the eye that's always there, but it's beautiful to see, and especially through doing things like this podcast. And I'm sure you can relate to just meeting other people on this path, like we said at the beginning, like at Newson, when you're with those like-minded people, are ones who are committed to unfolding that awareness within us. It's like the thread is there, the thread of the real seeker that says, like, there's got to be more than just this. There
Mm,
has to be, and that closes the eyes and takes the quest inward. I really feel for
mm,
me, and just seeing it in someone like you and anybody that's keen, whether you call them a Buddhist or a yogi or a Christian or a Muslim, it's like if the seeker is there.
mm.
Like last night I had a satsang and we were talking about how all rivers lead to the same ocean, and it's like, who wants to get on the boat? Like,
That's
I'm
nice.
I'm on the boat and I'm picking up friends as
Yes.
we go along.
Yes. And sometimes we are lucky to be on board together, but it's also quite solitary way sometimes, and we have to be strong and stable. And I love listening to you. It's very nice put, and also it's good to speak about this because some people they won't understand really when you can choose so very clearly, like you're describing, like leaving addiction, and you find a way. Some people, it will be like, oh, but why can't you make other choices like this? But it doesn't work like that. This hyper focus is something else, and can't be very precise about it. But over time, it feels like I trust it, which is really nice. Like when I wrote the book, I just signed the contract, and I knew that even if I only have like 4 months, I will make it because I love this. Then I will make it. But if I don't love it, if I don't feel it, it will be chaos. I will I will
Yeah.
procrastinate, I will do so many other things, and then I will be in a problem.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask you about the process of writing a book as the ADHD brain, but that makes so much sense. If you love it, you're hyper focused, you just do it. But if you had to write a book on something else, probably wouldn't be the same process.
Not at all. And now it's passed many years since I wrote this last book. but still I haven't wrote anything new. And now I found this Tibetan text called, it's written by Togme Tsangpo, 14th century, called 37 Practices of a Bodhisattva. A very important text for Buddhists.
Hmm.
So it's 37 verses about to live a compassionate life whatsoever, the Bodhisattva way. So now I spent 1.5 years and translated those verses from Tibetan to Swedish, instead of writing a new book about mindfulness, which would be wiser, I guess. But again, it's a hyper focus. I got totally absorbed by those verses. It's the only thing I can do. So now I wrapped it up. So now it will be out next year.
Okay, so you're gonna publish this translation
Yeah,
of the
in Swedish.
amazing.
Yeah,
Get
in
it into
January.
English also. We need it in English. Or actually, I
It
just
is in English. It is
okay,
to
good.
find in English. So that's also why I won't go there, because there's so
Mm,
many nice translation, and this is my
okay.
first translation from Tibetan. So I'm a little bit, how to say, not worried, but I really want to do it good since it's an
Okay.
important text.
Great. So that's out next year.
January in Swedish.
Great. Well, hopefully by then I'm going to be speaking Swedish because I started SFE last week. So that's going to
Yeah,
be my goal. Read Magnus's translation of 37 Rules for to be
that's good.
Bodhisattva. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. It will come fast for you. Yes. And you will speak
Actually,
a beautiful dialect. I'm also from the south of Sweden, so that makes me happy that you will speak Skånska, the southern Swedish accent.
yes. And actually, I was listening to your podcast when I was driving home this morning from teaching, thinking, I'm gonna use the Swedish Magnus and what's your partner's name?
Sheila.
Sheila and Magnus's meditations for practicing my Svenska because you're speaking so clear and so it's the perfect way for me to
Oh,
practice my
that's
Swedish.
good.
So,
The Sheila is a Stockholm dialect, and I'm the southern Sweden dialect.
okay, great. Well, I'm definitely going to share the podcast anyways because there are a few English
Yes,
meditations on there, which is great. And I'm gonna share everything about you. Where to buy the book, your website, you've got the mindfulness app. You've done so much, you've offered so much. You really see that your work is something that you live and you love, and you really, in my opinion, share it as a kind of service. So, I'm really grateful for that and grateful to spend this time with you.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, and I always like to wrap up the episode by asking three quick fire questions.
Oh, nice.
So the first question is, sum up your personal sadhana in 3 words.
My personal sadhana.
Mm,
Consistency, compassion, and clarity.
mm. Consistency, compassion, clarity.
That's what
Beautiful.
I'm looking after, at least.
Hmm. And sum up this conversation in 1 sentence.
I think it was very nice. First, I felt a little bit like I'm always a little bit shy when I speak English to not find the right words, but I think it came out really nice, and I'm also very happy to hear your perspective on things. I think it's always nice because I've been doing quite many podcasts and tell many different things, but I like when it's more like both perspectives. I think that is very nice. So
Hmm.
it's so nice for me to hear you.
That's such a very Swedish thing to say. It's very nice.
Really?
But it is. I completely agree. It's been so, so nice to just spend time with you. Like I said at the beginning, I so appreciate the way that you present what you
Mm,
know. And I know that you know it. It's so clear that you know it from your own personal practice, which is why it's probably so well received. We wish that you'll come do some teaching in Malmö, or if you go to Gothenburg, we'll definitely come take some.
Yeah, Gothenburg will be, I think, yoga games next year. But
Hmm.
do you think that curiosity, I think it's also ADHD, this curiosity, because I always feel curious about when I meet new people. I feel like I want to learn and get to know people. And also that's
Definitely.
something I learned from Buddhists, that always consider new people as potential friends, not
I love that.
the other way around. That is competitive way is such a that's not a good path for anyone. I think we should see each other as really friends.
Hmm.
Makes the world such a beautiful place. Even if you're just in the mart or the store and buy food, you can see people as friends, and will makes a big change in your way of acting and meeting people.
And it is like that kind of, the flame of the candle. When we do, when you meet someone in the grocery store, on the cycle, at the light, as that friend, that is contagious. Similarly, how unkindness or cruelty is contagious. Like, and if we
Exactly.
just,
Hmm.
but how do we get there first? Like, it has to come from there. And I think that's like the real crux
Yeah,
of the work is for us to have it, like you said at the very the beginning about, not liking yourself. And it's like having the compassion for oneself, and then we can shine it out and meet each one as a friend. And then that one meets each one as a friend. And good Lord, we need it now. We need to like reflect that, because otherwise it's just too despair and dark. We've got to keep the candle flame.
totally agree. Totally agree. So yoga off the mat is maybe for the coming years more important than ever.
Yoga off the mat and compassion in action.
Compassion in action. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just made that up. I don't know. I just made
Nice.
it
Compassion in
up.
action. That's really nice.
And okay, and I've got one last final question for
Oh yeah.
you. Which maybe you already said this, but which spiritual text or scripture inspires you currently?
That was a hard one. I always want to mention many different, but oh, I read I read quite much now. Right now I read a book from what's his name? Um, Gelong Tupten, I think his name, is an English monk. He's quite out there in social media and stuff. I think Gelong Tupten, he wrote a book called Meditation for Hard Times.
Hmm.
I read that, and it's a really nice book. And he also have this history of have some struggle in life, and he feels very honest from his side, and how the teachings helped him along the way. Yeah, and I feel when I choose literature, I want to read about, even if it's spiritual teachers, I appreciate when they, how to say, make themselves a human being and tell about if they have some struggles, like Mingyur Rinpoche, the well-known great teacher Mingyur Rinpoche, when he tells about his childhood, for example, that he was struggling with a lot of anxiety, and how he came over that. I like those stories to read about real human beings whenever you are a great teacher or a guru, whatever you are. But I think life is there, and Buddha was right. There is friction in life,
Hmm.
but we have
Yeah.
to deal with this. We can be saved from it for some time, but you never know why. Like for me, when my daughter was born, and and also to learn how things can exist parallel. I was super happy. It was my daughter, was the most beautiful person I know. She's now grown up and doing very well. But at the same time, I felt a lot of sorrow, of course, that it didn't came out like I thought it
Hmm.
should do.
Yeah, it's
Well,
so true how it's as a student or as a reader or in a it's one that's taking in these teachings in a modern context, how much more potent it is when we can connect on the human level, and like the circumstances may be different in the sense like I've not experienced having a daughter that's ill, but I've experienced the anguish and the pain
mm,
that's innate within all of us. And so when we apply the teachings to those shared human experiences, it is so much more powerful. It does like
mm,
resonate and we can share them, we can learn from each other. We still have to, like you said, have the courage to kind of face our fears and go
mm,
behind the house. And
mm.
yet it's like having the shared experience together, the sangha, the community, it makes it so much less isolating in a way.
Yes, true. Totally agree with that. Totally. If I can recommend one thing, I mentioned now Mingyur Rinpoche is one of the monks that been included in the conducted research studies on mindfulness, like is written about in the book Alter Trades. There is on Netflix. There is a documentary series called Mind Explained, and one episode of those Mind Explained is about mindfulness, and it's actually about Mingyur Rinpoche, and he tells about his childhood, but he also Richard Davidson and Daniel Goleman tells about the research studies on his brain, and the results.
Okay.
Really interesting, really interesting.
Okay, definitely. I'm gonna put that in the show notes also and probably like watch it tonight. That's some good Netflix to consume. It's like the
Absolutely,
the
much
kind
better
that
than the Golden
elevates.
Prince.
Yes, although I do like watching the Swedish shows, but I
Yeah.
will. This is more my. This is a great thing. So much here. Like I don't know. Just to sign off, is there anything? I know you're heading to India to do a retreat soon, but is there anything you want to share with the listeners? Anything that you have coming up, or just
Yes, I will go to Nepal 2 times next year in March, and I will go there with a group of people on a mindfulness trip to Nepal. We call it mindfulness and yoga trip, and that one is full. So I added another one in October. So it will be a group about 20 people. We will stay in monastery, beautiful monastery up in the east of Kathmandu Valley, and we will be there for 10 days for like a semi-retreat cultural trip to Kathmandu Valley. So if you're
wow.
interested in that, you can join me.
Well, Simon and I will probably be interested. That sounds amazing. Great. So lots and lots of love, and really just thank you so much for your time and your energy and everything that you're offering. Just really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for a great talk,
It's
and
been great.
send my regards to Simon as well.
I definitely will, and I'm sure we will find you soon, and we definitely hope to see you and practice with you again. Or if we're in Stockholm, we'll definitely get in touch.
You should. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna edit this episode this week and I'll just share it out and I'll send you the link when it's done
Yeah.
and
And I
post it
will
on
share in my
social
channel.
media and everything.
Of course, I will do.
Um, yeah, so lots of love and have a great week. Just super inspired.
Same to you. Take care now.
Take
Okay.
care. Hej då!
Hej då!